Wow. All praises to the Creator, life, breath, existence, the reason that we're here right now, the beginning and the end. Ama, Abba, Halal Hawah. Fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, 1976. Tawada for coming in here right now and joining this celebration. Because we're talking about perseverance of the remnant today. And this is a celebration. This ain't a video. And I am just a humble man on YouTube. I am not a YouTuber. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to take a trip down memory lane. And we're going to talk that perseverance of the remnant today. Let's go. We're jumping straight in. What is perseverance? A will or ability to persevere, tenacity, persistence, endurance, steadfastness, constancy, to continue steadfastly. Perseverance of the remnant, which is the remaining part or quality, that which is left or remains, the remainder. And let's go get a scripture about it. Diving straight in today. We ain't playing with them. We're going to Isaiah chapter 10. And let's talk remnant for a second. We're going to get out the Septuagint to start things off. Verse 1, Isaiah chapter 10. Woe to them that write wickedness. But when they write, they do write wickedness, perverting the cause of the poor, violently wresting the judgment of the needy ones of my people, that the widow may be a prey to them, and the orphan a spoil. And what will they do in the day of visitation? For affliction shall come to you from afar. And to whom will ye flee for help? And where will ye leave your glory, that ye may not fall into captivity? For all this is his wrath, is not turned away, but his hand is yet exalted. Woe to the Assyrians! The rod of my wrath and anger are in their hands. I will send my wrath against a sinful nation, and I will charge my people to take plunder and spoil, and to trample the cities and to make them dust. But he meant not thus, neither did he devise thus in his soul, but his mind shall change. And that to destroy nations, not a few. And if they should say to him, thou alone art ruler, then shall he say, have I not taken the country above Babylon and the Chaldeans, where the tower was built? And have I not taken Arabia and Damascus and Samaria? As I have taken them, I will also take all the kingdoms. How, ye idols in Jerusalem and in Samaria? For as I did to Samaria and her idols, so will I do also to Jerusalem and her idols. And it shall come to pass when Hawah shall have finished doing all things on Mount Zion and Jerusalem, that I will visit upon the proud hearts, even upon the ruler of the Assyrians, and upon the boastful haughtiness of his eyes. For he said, I will act in strength and in wisdom of my understanding. I will remove the boundaries of nations and will spoil their strength. And I will shake the inhabited cities, and I will take my hand all the world as a nest, and I will even take them as eggs that have been left. And there is none that shall escape me or contradict me. Shall the axe glorify itself without him that hews with it? Or shall the saw lift up itself without him that uses it? As if one should lift a rod or staff. But it shall not be so. But Hawah of hosts shall send dishonor upon thine honor, and burning fire shall be kindled upon thy glory. And the light of Israel shall be for a fire, and he shall sanctify him with burning fire in the hills and the forests, and the fire shall devour both soul and body. And he that flees shall be as one fleeing from burning flame, and they that are left of them shall be a small number, and a child shall write them. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel shall no more join themselves with, and the saved of Jacob shall no more trust in them that injured them. But they shall trust in Hawah, the holy power of Israel, in truth. And the remnant of Jacob shall trust on the mighty Hawah. And though the people of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant of them shall be saved. He will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because Hawah will make a short work in all the world. Therefore, thus says Hawah of hosts, be not afraid, my people who dwell in Zion, of the Assyrians, because he shall smite thee with the rod. For I am bringing a stroke upon thee, that thou mayest see the way of Egypt, Mizraim. For yet a little while, and the indignation shall cease, but my wrath shall be against their counsel. And Hawah will stir up enemies against them, according to the stroke of Madian, in the place of affliction. And his wrath shall be by the way of the sea, even to the way that leads to Mizraim, Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day that his yoke shall be taken away from thy shoulder, and his fear from thee, and the yoke shall be destroyed from off your shoulders. Halal Hawah. We back at it. All right. So, there's something I noticed caught my attention when I was reading this. If we go back to Verse 12, right? Let me turn this down just a little bit. Verse 12, right? It said, even upon the ruler of the Assyrians, and upon the boastful haughtiness of his eyes. The boastful haughtiness of his eyes. Who that remind you of? Hold on. Okay, who that remind you of? This guy goes by the name of Charles V, Carlos Quinto, the hijacker of the Incas, Holy Roman Emperor. Hold on. Yeah. Charles V with the haughtiness, right? There you go. I keep going back. Alright, here you go again. With that haughtiness. Alright? Because if you remember, when we did that video on Peru, we talked about Charles V. And we were comparing him to Shalmaneser. Shalmaneser, Charles V. How they might be the same. The scripture said the ruler of Assyrians, right? So, let me see something. Have you heard of the Habsburg gaze? The Habsburg gaze refers to the distinctive physical traits associated with the Habsburg family, particularly the prominent jawline known as the Habsburg jaw, resulting from generations of inbreeding. So because of all this inbreeding they was doing, they developed a Habsburg jaw, which gave them this appearance with the Habsburg gaze. Alright, now Shalmaneser and Charles V, right? There goes Shalmaneser. They got some things in common, right? Alright, Shalmaneser. They say, notice they both got that 5 at the end, right? Charles V, Shalmaneser V. Shalmaneser's got a few titles here. He's got 5 titles. King of Assyria, King of Babylon, King of Sumer and Akkad, King of the 4 corners of the world. They even got him King of the universe. Alright, and then when you go check out Charles V, right? Alright. There's a hijack picture they got right here, but check him out. He's got 5 titles as well. Holy Roman Emperor, Archduke of Austria, King of Castile, King of Aragon, and Duke of Burgundy. So this is just a little something that goes along with what we'd already been talking about. Just something to put on your mind real quick. But we're going to jump straight into a video to get things rolling. Alright, let's go.
I was lost, but now I'm found. I'm a child of Israel. I heard the sound. Please give me the strength to stand.
The real Jews you need to be worried about are the black people over here getting killed, the black people in other countries scattered in the slave trade. That's the real biblical Hebrew Israelite.
So as a Gentile, I'm here to profess, black people, you are Israelites, you are the chosen ones, you are a prestigious people.
You know that the black man in America is Israel, that he's Jews. Do you know that?
Yes.
The people that are
you-
here, the black people, the people of color that are here, that have been brought here from Africa, their ancestors
We know he was found here, but let's go.
brought here from Africa are the Hebrew Israelites. They're even in the African dictionary. African and Negro are two different things, are two different classifications of people.
From West Africa, they have been taken as slaves to America. Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can just to hide this away from you. Gonna take Israel, gonna bring white people here and to tell you these are the Jews, gonna kill you, gonna kill Arabs, gonna mistreat white people like this guy just to tell you this lie. That you are nobody and we are the Jews with all the history and so on. It has been deleted, your history. You don't know who you are. Don't forget about it. This is why America has been taking your history away, never to find out that it's all about you.
Tell them who the true people of the Bible are.
The black people.
Say that again.
The black people.
Acts 13:1. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. Simeon was called Niger, Niger. And that word, my friend, is a Latin word meaning black. And it was referring to people's skin color. Okay? And Niger just happens to be where that foul word comes from if you add a G onto it. And that is what the whole planet calls Hebrews to this very day.
يفترض أن بني إسرائيل في التاريخ القديم كانت لهم مواصفات جسمانية كطول الجسد وكعرض الجسد وشكل الرأس ولون البشرة ولون الشعر ولون العينين. هذه المواصفات التي يفترض أن الأبناء يولدوا دائما يتوارثونها. اليهود الآن منهم الزنجي ومنهم صاحب الشعر الأصفر ومنهم صاحب العيون الزرقاء، يعني تقريبا يتنوعوا ما بين أجناس البشر المختلفة، وبالتالي الحديث عن أن هؤلاء في العصر الحديث لهم علاقة ببني إسرائيل في التاريخ القديم هذا ليس صحيح.
Everybody blames the Jews for killing Christ, and then the Jews try to pass it off on the Romans. I'm one of the few people that believes it was the blacks.
I would interject that the true biblical Hebrews are the so-called African-American people that are scattered abroad throughout the world.
Paul healing people as a white man, lies.
You know who we've been talking about, they're all lies. They were all black. As cold.
The brown ones, bro. The real Jews, huh? The real Hebrews, bro. Shalom Aleichem.
Bro, real Jews were Hebrews, black men who used to grow their afros.
I want to read chapter 28 and verse 68. It says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you." Now the only race of people that were brought over on ships and sold as bondmen and bondwomen, which are slaves, are the so-called African Americans.
We all came off the same boat.
All right. Here we go. Why you talking Remnant today, bro? Well, I feel like it's right. Time is right. All right, because I'm noticing the spirit of truth is starting to take over. All the fairy tales, all the lies, is becoming a thing of the past. And you witnessing the tables turn. People not going for it no more. People not the same no more. They want the truth. So here it is. We're going to celebrate because we've been through a lot. All right. Now don't forget Deuteronomy 28:46. Let's start at 45. Dealing with those curses in Deuteronomy. All these curses will come upon you. They will pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed. Since you did not obey Hawah, your power, and keep the commandments and statutes he gave you. These curses will be a sign and a wonder upon you and your descendants forever. All right, forever. So this is how you know who is Israel to this day. Only one group on earth went through all this. All right. Now, we're going to go through these curses a little bit. In Deuteronomy 28, I got a little breakdown for you. All right, to make it easy, we're just going to do it like this. All right, I got a few videos to go along with these. A couple of examples I want to use because, yeah, many people are aware of this already. But when you put it in a visualization, in the day that we live in, it hit a little bit different. And you start to understand the perseverance a little bit more and how blessed we are. So much Baruch. All right, let's go to 28 verse 16 that says, "Curse shalt thou be in the city, and curse shalt thou be in the field." Alternative interpretation: city means urban poverty, segregation, ghettos. Fields like plantation slavery, forced agricultural labor. All right. Historical parallels often cited: cotton plantation, sugar plantation, sharecropping, and redlining. All right. Yeah, and don't forget you were the original planters until they took your vineyards. Just like the curses says. Now, let's get a little video about it real quick. Now, this video, it's like 8 minutes long. Oh, matter of fact, before we hit the video, let's talk about these ghettos, these projects. All right. This says ghettos in the United States are typically urban neighborhoods perceived as being high in crime and poverty. The origins of these areas are specific to the United States, and its laws created ghettos through both legislation and private efforts to segregate America for political, economic, social, and ideological reasons. So this is for segregation. Now notice the sign right here, which comes from a protest sign at a housing project in Detroit, 1942, right? What it say? It says, "We want white tenants in our white community." Now, this is a sign in the housing project saying we want white tenants in our white community, because this is around the time that they were starting to put the so-called black man in the ghetto. And they didn't want that. They wanted white tenants. So as you can see, these ghettos was originally set up for white people, so-called white people, right? All right, but they want to flip the narrative around today and say, you know, this is our thing, but actually it was their thing. And they played a game on us called Trading Places, right? But originally all the federal assistance and government assistance and aid was for the so-called white man. You was living comfortably at the time. Alright, just to let you know. Now, let's get a video about it real quick. A kickback, it's like an 8-minute video. Alright, let go.
Change is no good if it's not for the better. Some change ain't no good at all.
This is where we orchestrated in this community. This was known as Brooklyn. This is where black folk lived. This is where the churches were. This is where our businesses were.
The neighborhood of Brooklyn, for then it was ideal because everybody looked after everybody's children. Didn't nobody have nothing, but it was close. You could sleep on the front porch. You could walk, get up and go anywhere you want to go at any time of night. You didn't have no problems.
Charlotte's Brooklyn neighborhood existed for about the first 2/3 of the 20th century. It's the area that today is the government center, Marshall Park, NASCAR Hall of Fame, all of that in the center city. It was most of the Second Ward neighborhood. As segregation hardened, became the most important African American neighborhood. Brooklyn was the center of civic life. It was where the Black Main Street was, roughly where today's Martin Luther King Boulevard was. It was a beloved neighborhood.
We played hopscotch in the street and played ball in the street, kickball and softball. All that was played right over there. And when I close my eyes, I can see all of that.
We had dry cleaners. We had grocery stores. We had meat markets. We had shoe shine stands, barber shops. Brooklyn is a wonderful place to live. We used to make pallets on the front porch and never forget.
You had poor people, you had middle class people, and maybe even a little more affluent people.
Congested streets, inadequate parking, retail vacancies. There's only one answer. That is a master plan of development. It's do or die for downtown Charlotte right now.
During a period of time, there was this urban renewal that came through, and I often heard it growing up as a child as being referred to as black removal, because that's what I witnessed, that black folk were actually displaced from the Brooklyn community, which was uptown Charlotte, and moved to the west side.
When they could say they're gonna tear down Brooklyn, and they start putting up posters letting you know, then the next thing you know, they're shutting down everything. Time to go.
Was if you wipe out blighted neighborhoods, you'll have the perfect city. And unfortunately, they defined blighted neighborhoods as neighborhoods where there were a lot of absentee landlords, a lot of rundown housing, which often was African American neighborhoods because of redlining and other things that kept African Americans from easily buying homes.
The property was significant. People felt that Brooklyn was a shanty town, had all
shotgun houses. It was blighted. Well, there was a part of Brooklyn that certainly had low-income housing or housing that wasn't very affordable. But guess what? It also had houses that had multi-bedrooms, wrought iron fences, really two-story homes. They were owned by African Americans. So there was a variety of price point housing in Brooklyn.
Okay. I feel like a stranger in my hometown. There's so much change. Because I can't even find my way now when I come down here. Let's see. On this side of the street, the Savoy would have been right in there, the Savoy Theater. I don't see anything here that remotely helps me to remember where anything is. None of this is. If that were 2nd Street, we would have made a left there, and about right in there, the Savoy Theater. And where all those gray buildings are would have been buildings, apartments. And on down there would have been black businesses, cafes, tailor shops, hairdressers.
In the last few years, which will come to fruition as we move forward, is this Brooklyn Village project, which is intended to give honor to that history and to create something that won't look anything like the old Brooklyn, but will have some of the vibrance of having stores, homes, offices, all in the same place.
Dennis Lacaria, Senior Assistant to the County Manager, will be giving you an update on the Center City redevelopment project. It includes Brooklyn Village.
So going into the components of the Master Redevelopment Agreement included 106,800 square feet of retail, 532,000 square feet of office, 395 housing units minimum. 30% of the below market units will be dedicated to 60% AMI or less.
You know, where there's still some emotion around the history of Brooklyn, I respect it, and I think it's foolish to try and, like I said, to try and do anything that attempts to fix that. Is that specifically for the former residents of Brooklyn? It's not.
The county is saying we're going to rebuild Brooklyn. We can only replace those facilities, but the spirit is what I'm pushing for. That as we build, that we build on the spirit of Brooklyn, what it was.
Brooklyn to Blue Heaven, to First Ward, Third Ward, Billeville, Greenville. All these places is long forgotten about. Change is on the way.
Change is definitely on the way. Alright, I enjoyed that little video right there. Now, I'm not trying to stir you up and put you down that lane of trauma, PTSD or whatever. You know, this ain't to discourage you. This is just to show you how blessed you are. How blessed we are. Still be here. Alright? And maybe some people need to see this. But yeah, let's continue on. Alright. 28 verse 17. Cursed shall be thy basket in thy store, and Interpretation: lack of generational wealth, economic exploitation, businesses repeatedly destroyed or controlled. Examples like Black Wall Street, destruction, discriminatory banking, economic disenfranchisement, the Tulsa race massacre. All right, all these things got to do with your basket and your store being cursed, right? So just like what happened with the Black Wall Street, all right, back when they had, look what they had going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They had 600 businesses, 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, 2 movie theaters, 6 private airplanes, plus a hospital, a bank, and a post office, schools, libraries, law offices, and even a bus system. All right, we got a quick little video. Let's get it.
How does a city vanish in a single day and almost no one talks about it? In 1921, Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma wasn't just a black neighborhood, it was called Black Wall Street. Thriving businesses, theaters, schools, and wealth created by the community itself. But success painted a target on their backs. A dispute between a black man and a white woman sparked rumors. Within hours, white mobs were marching through Greenwood, armed with guns, torches, and government approval. Yes, local authorities looked the other way and even deputized attackers. For 18 hours, Greenwood burned. Homes, businesses, churches, everything. Planes flew overhead, dropping firebombs. Thousands were left homeless. Wealth that took decades to build was erased almost instantly. The world barely knew. Newspapers downplayed it. Survivors were silenced. Insurance companies denied claims. The system wasn't just failing them, it actively punished them for thriving. A community's dreams, destroyed not by fate, but by fear, racism, and systemic complicity. The story of Greenwood exposes a painful truth. Success for Black Americans has often been met with violent resistance. Yet even after the ashes, Greenwood refused to disappear. Survivors rebuilt, slowly, quietly. But the question lingers, how many other histories have been erased in plain sight?
A lot. A whole lot. All right. Now let us continue on. Let me see. Yeah. Now, this is a common theme, all right, through history. As we even look here, remember Rosewood, right? In Florida, 1923, all right. Only one house exists in the area formerly known as the town of Rosewood, which in 1923 was a thriving so-called African American community, until a dispute led to a massacre of at least 8 people, and the town was burned and destroyed. I burned and destroyed, man. All right. Let's get another example. Just like the famous Lake Lanier, all right, which is famous for the wrong reasons because it was formerly Oscarville. All right, a whole community that got buried beneath Lake Lanier. So they wasn't just burning you down, they were flooding you down. And everybody, I think, already knows about Lake Lanier, but this is just to remind you. All right, whole community gone, underwater. It's haunted to this day. And And even when you go back to the times of the Indians, they was burning things down. These are the real natives, pinned up and burned and shot, put to the sword. All right. Deuteronomy 28. Okay. What's next? Verse 18. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body. Interpretation. Family destruction, infant mortality, broken households, children suffering under oppression. Historical parallels, slave breeding systems, forced separation, eugenics programs, foster system disparities. All right, we got a little video on that as well. Let's roll.
I had to have a child at the age of 14, and when I had my son, they went in to me. At the same time, they gave me a cesarean birth and took my child. And when they did that, they sterilized me. What do you think I'm worth? What do you think I'm worth?
Elaine Riddick was just 13 when a neighbor raped her. Then she endured what she refers to as her second rape. State officials declared Riddick feeble-minded and unfit to have children.
Main reason is because I was poor and I am black. I believe that with all of my heart.
Based on the pseudoscience of eugenics, more than 30 states passed laws allowing for the forced sterilization of so-called defectives. The goal was to rid society of certain undesirable traits.
Some of those traits that they named were epilepsy, feeble-mindedness, promiscuity, criminal mentalities.
Researchers believe that as many as 100,000 Americans were victimized. By the time North Carolina ended its own eugenics program in 1974, it had taken away the reproductive rights of 7,600 people. Most, like Riddick, were poor. Tony Riddick still lives close to his mother's hometown in the coastal plain. He says she doesn't come home often.
They used to call it Little Korea. Yeah, Little Korea. The reason why is because it was very violent, coming up. She grew up in a very, very abusive home. My mother's life and my life, by any measure, would have been, should have been, could have been totally written off. But the fact of the matter is God still prevails, and I'm grateful for that. Very, very grateful.
His mother would be grateful for justice. She drove from her adopted home in Georgia to testify before a North Carolina task force considering compensation for sterilization victims.
There's nothing that the state of North Carolina can do to justify what they did to me, what they did to these other victims. It's not my grandmother's fault that she was uneducated. It's not my mother's fault that she was abused by her husband. It wasn't my fault that my environment, that I was raised in, that I was brought up in this type of environment. I had nothing to do with that. I was a victim. God said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth in His image. And I always tell everybody, how can you ever get to see the image of God when you're killing it off?
Riddick is tired of feeling like a victim, but she'll have to wait until next February to see if the Tar Heel state will give her and 2,000 other eugenics survivors justice. Alan Breed, Associated Press, Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right. Sad, though. Still going on to this day. Got programs like Planet, what's it called? Planned Parenthood and things like that. Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving, man. We're going to roll through these. All right. Verse 19. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Interpretation: constant systemic oppression, danger in all environments, paralleled with Jim Crow era, racial profiling, housing discrimination, restricted movement historically. All right. Yeah. We got another quick little video.
My name is Timuel D. Black. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, December the 7th, 1918. The South was absolutely Jim Crow, and what was then called Negroes were not permitted the same. They could not vote, they could not organize, they could not look at particularly Caucasian women or they would be lynched. So the threat headed by the Ku Klux Klan was continuous.
Their burnt-out car was discovered near Philadelphia, Mississippi.
There was an insecurity that made them uncomfortable, and the families were always afraid that that family would be torn apart. It was a dangerous time, a continuously dangerous time, because the Ku Klux Klan, a violent operated group, felt the responsibility to keep this newly freed ex-slave, ex-sharecropping group separated and at the same time controlled by the dominant white group. They were not entitled to the promises which has been made by the Constitution of the United States. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Well, they were not considered men. They were considered property, chattel, not human.
Okay, moving on. You see it, right? All right, you witnessing it. Verse 20. Hawah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke. Interpretation: psychological warfare, instability, institutional oppression. This is paralleling COINTELPRO, social destabilization, and chronic economic insecurity. All right, I got another little quick video. All right, let's go.
December 4th, 1969. Chicago police fire over 90 bullets into an apartment while a 21-year-old man sleeps. His name was Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party. He never woke up. This wasn't a rogue cop. It was official U.S. policy. COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, wasn't a conspiracy theory. According to declassified FBI documents, it was a systematic government operation from 1956 to 1971 with one directive from Director J. Edgar Hoover: expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize black activists and civil rights leaders. FBI infiltrator William O'Neill provided a floor plan of Hampton's apartment, marking which room he slept in. O'Neill drugged Hampton with secobarbital the night before the raid so he wouldn't wake up. When police stormed in at 4:30 a.m., Hampton never had a chance. But Hampton was just one target. According to the Church Committee investigation, COINTELPRO targeted Martin Luther King Jr. with blackmail letters trying to make him take his own life. They monitored Malcolm X. They sent fake letters between black organizations to start violence. which resulted in multiple deaths. Of 290 official COINTELPRO actions, 245 targeted the Black Panther Party. The FBI called it neutralizing threats. Congressional investigations called it illegal. In 1976, the Senate Select Committee stated the FBI violated specific statutory prohibitions and infringed the constitutional rights of American citizens. This wasn't speculation, this was policy, and it happened on American soil. What else don't they teach us? Drop your thoughts below. In 1932, hundreds of poor black men in Tuskegee, Alabama were promised free medical care. They trusted the doctors, men in white coats representing science, safety, and truth. But behind those smiles was a lie. The men had syphilis, and the doctors didn't tell them. They called it a study. They watched as the disease slowly destroyed their bodies. For 40 years, even when penicillin became the cure, they were denied treatment, deliberately kept sick just so the researchers could observe. Wives were infected, children were born with the disease, and no one told them why. It wasn't until 1972, 40 years later, that the truth came out, and the world was horrified. The Tuskegee syphilis study became one of the darkest stains on modern medicine, a lesson written in pain, mistrust, and betrayal. Because the moment medicine forgets humanity, it stops healing and starts destroying.
"40 years. There goes that biblical 40 again. All right, I think that's it for the videos I got. I wanted to give you some visuals because it just makes it resonate more when you got something to look at, you know what I'm saying? But we're gonna run through the rest of these. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Verse 22. Consumption, fever, inflammation, interpretation, epidemics in slave quarters, inadequate health care, and disease among oppressed populations. Verse 23 through 24. We're just gonna run through these real quick. Heaven over thy head, brass, interpretation, drought, hard labor, environmental suffering. Some interpret symbolically as prayers unanswered and oppression without relief. Oppression without relief. Does that remind you of something? Alright. Let's see if I can get it on here. Alright. 1452 Papal Bull Dum Diversus, issued out by Pope Nicholas V, This authorized Alfonso V of Portugal to reduce any Saracens, which they're calling Muslims later on, and they called them pagans, and any other unbelievers to perpetual slavery, oppression without relief. Now we know 40 years after this, they go there 40 again. That's when Columbus pulled up. So this was the hit, was put out by Pope Nicholas V, and he was melanated. All right, but yeah, that Catholic Church, right? All right, the age of discovery, so-called discovery, right? This was weighing all in singular premises with due meditation, noting that since we had formerly by other letters of ours granted among other things free and ample faculty to the aforesaid King Alfonso to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and enemies of their Christ. All right, this was in the name of Christ, that New Testament Messiah. All right, whosoever placed in the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, all movable and immovable goods, whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. All right, we're still going on today. You are modern day slaves stuck in this beast system until Hawaii comes back. But this was the original hit 'em up list. All right, issued out by Pope Nicholas V. All right. Now, let me see something. Let's go to the next. All right, thou shalt be, verse 25, thou shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Interpretation, global African diaspora. Now, ChatGPT, GGPT, they still on that hijack. You know what I'm saying? I really don't mess with them too much these days. Or every once in a while, I get in there and wrestle with them. But they messed up and put African diaspora right here. I just left it on there just to show you. All right. But this parallels Caribbean, Americas, Europe, Middle East. All right. Which they saying, we know that the so-called slave trade was in reverse. And it actually was a lot of shipping around in the Americas that they were doing to the islands. All right. We're going to get a little bit more of that. But let's keep going. Verse 26, thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls. Interpretation, we know about this. Lynchings, public executions, bodies left exposed. All right, they was just walking on by like ain't nothing happened, right? All right, sick. All right, we talked about that. Black Wall Street, verse 27. All right, we running through these now. We on the move now. Botch of Egypt, interpretation, skin diseases, physical afflictions, humiliation. All right, we know they was calling them, they was having barbecues, right? Human barbecues, man. All right, all that. Alternative readers sometimes connect this to diseases under slavery conditions, all right? Now, we know diseases come with the idols, so whenever you're in idol worship, you're suspect to be stricken with disease, man. Verse 28, madness, blindness, astonishment of heart. Interpretation, psychological trauma, generational trauma, identity confusion. This verse is heavily emphasized in identity-based interpretations. So all type of trauma was going on, man. It was putting you in these asylums. Matter of fact, let me show you real quick. I got a video, if you haven't seen, dedicated to this curse alone. All right, and it's actually called, where it's at? Yeah, this video, Deuteronomy 28 and mental asylums. If you want to check that out, if you haven't seen it, This is tell you how they were putting you in those mental asylums, using shock treatments and all type of sick stuff they was doing in there. That's why you see in a lot of old pictures back, there wasn't nobody on the street because everybody was stuck up in these asylums, and they were gigantic asylums too. All right, they weren't original asylums. They was just using old so-called Tartarian buildings and throwing you in your own stuff, and then doing crazy experiments and stuff on you. Why? To destroy your mind, so to erase your memory, so you won't remember who you were. This is all part of Psalms 83. All right, Israel shall be no more, right? Now, let me see. But yeah, man, the madness. They would putting you in the mad houses. Oh, let me see. What we got? Okay, let's keep rolling. We're gonna roll through the rest of these. Verse 29, thou shalt grope at noonday, interpretation, inability to gain justice, institutional barriers, parallels, discriminatory courts, blocked advancement, unequal opportunity, but still goes on to this day, right? You know, if you go in a courtroom today and say that you're so-called black, in the court of law, that means you're dead. So you automatically throwing yourself under the bus by calling yourself black when you go to court. All right, or any other thing when you check that black box, African American box, you're automatically doing it to yourself. So they set it up for you to do it to yourself. All right. Verse 30, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Interpretation. All right, they was ravaging the women. All right, slave masters abusing enslaved women. Destruction of family structure. All right, now remember, all these curses gonna get put back on them. So they gonna get what they asked for. All right, this is one of the strongest historical parallels cited. All right, what they was doing to the women and whatnot, children, man, it was terrible. Verse 32, thy sons and daughters shall be given unto another people. Interpretation. You had the auctions going on, all right, family separation, all right. All that was going on around this time. Verse 33, the fruit of thy land, a nation which thou knowest not, will eat up, all right. A nation which thou knowest not. Who is a nation which thou knowest not? Can you think of these type of people? All right, scripture calls them aliens. All right, so what's an alien? Interpretation, you got stolen labor, stolen land, exploitation of productivity, unpaid plantation labor, systematic extraction of wealth. All these things was going on. 36 through 37, thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. Interpretation, racial stereotypes, slurs, imposed labels, example. These are all the names that they gave you, man, through the history, all right? You started off as an Israelite, then you turn into an Indian, then you turn into a Negro or colored or black, African American, nigger, whatever you want to use. All right, derogatory caricatures. All right, just throwing labels on you left and right. All right, they're gonna call you everything except for what you are. Verse 41, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them. Interpretation, children were sold away. Incarceration systems, family destruction. All right, this is still going on today. All right, they set these prison systems up for you to be in it. All right, a lot of this music was designed to tear up homes. All right, music and entertainment played a big part in all of this. All right, you even got so-called agencies that's supposed to be helping with the kids that's actually snatching up the kids. All right, it's wicked to the max. 43 through 44, the stranger shall get above thee. Interpretation, economic hierarchy, political disempowerment, dependency systems. All right, you will be the tail and not the head, right? So a stranger, here we go with the aliens again, strangers. All right, Deuteronomy 28:48. He shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck. All right, so yes, this has to do with the hard labor, bondage. All right, but we got that in Isaiah 10. Hawah gonna take that yoke off your neck, right? All right, right now you got an invisible yoke still on you. Interpretation, literal slave chains, iron restraints, bondage systems. Verse 49. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Interpretation, European colonizers, foreign languages imposed. All these different languages, they took your language away, made you go into these made you learn their stuff, set up the whole schooling system just to brainwash you. All right. Verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance. Interpretation, brutal colonial powers, harsh slave systems. All right, we know they don't care about nobody, right? Verse 52, he shall besiege thee in all thy gates. This is interpreted as militarized oppression, surveillance, confinement. Some modern readers connect this to over-policing, prison systems. Okay, we know about that. That's still going on. All right, we know that the police system, we know who they like target and whatnot. All right. 54 through 57, these verses describe desperation and social collapse. Alternative interpretation, severe oppression, destroying community bonds, survival trauma under slavery and poverty. All right, 64, scatter thee among thy people. Interpretation, global diaspora. This is central to the theory. Okay, 65, no ease, sorrow of mind. All right, you're gonna wish at nighttime was daytime and daytime was nighttime, right? Perpetual instability, psychological trauma, no homeland security. All right, all this giving you sorrow of mind. All right. Now, I'm not doing this to give you sorrow of mind right now, but I gotta let you know. All right, we gotta look at it. Verse 66, thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. Interpretation, racial violence, lynching era, modern violence fears. Okay, we definitely know about all that. Verse 68, Egypt again with ships, which means bondage. Maybe not literal Egypt, but maybe you did go back to literal Mitzrayim because it's right here in America. All right, bondage, ships. All right, sold unto your enemies, and nobody will buy you, right? And here goes ChatGPT with the hijack. Once again, they had to throw this in here. We know this right here is the mainstream lie, saying that we all came in ships, packed in here like sardines, man. Come on, man. Now you know this is a lie, all right? And this is supposed to be the African slave trade, which actually happened in reverse. They were shipping you over there and other places, islands and whatnot. All right, let's continue. This verse forms the backbone of many so-called black Hebrew Israelite identifications with ancient Israel. The core alternative history conclusion with this framework, proponents argue the cumulative pattern is too specific to ignore, especially ships, iron yokes, scattering, family separation, and bywords. So this is too specific to ignore who the real people are, man, that had to deal with this. But give yourself a pat on the back because you still here, man. All right, let's keep it rolling. See what we got next. I think I got an image. Oh, this is an example of how it was really going down, right? All right, this is just showing you patterns of how they were shipping people around. See the arrows? All right, see how they was just moving, relocating folks. All right, you even got the Philippines in it on the mix. All right, but yes, they just moving you all over the place. And this is before Columbus even pulled up. Or was nah? This was after. This was after. Okay, this was after. I'm getting names mixed up. Yeah, you was getting put all over the place. All right, but it didn't happen like they say it happened, right? The untold history of so-called Native Americans, the real natives, all right, or American Indians, right? The real Native Americans were enslaved by Europeans in North America before the African slave trade. All right, that's what I was thinking about. Okay, the enslavement part, that was before. All right, before the so-called African slave trade. The enslavement of indigenous people had long-lasting effects and is underrepresented in historical records. They don't talk about it. European colonizers enslaved indigenous people as part of a strategy to clear land for settlers. All right, so you know Columbus was coming through, kidnapping and whatnot, right? All right, here you go. Columbus, right? They was kidnapping folk. All right, the enslavement of indigenous people lasted well into the 18th century, when it was largely replaced by African enslavement. So now they don't talk about that no more, but they'll tell you about the Africans, right? That's what they base everything off of. Okay. Let me see, let me get a little bit out of here. Nowhere is there more documentation of enslavement of indigenous people than in South Carolina. The location of the original English colony of Carolina, established in 1670. It is estimated that between 1615 and 1730, at least 50,000 indigenous people, and likely more due to transactions hidden to avoid paying government tariffs and taxes, were exported by the English alone to the Caribbean outposts. See? So they're taking you to the Caribbeans and whatnot. Between 1670 and 1717, far more indigenous people were exported than Africans were imported. Far more. All right, in southern coastal regions, entire tribes were more often exterminated through enslavement compared to disease. So they're saying that they were exterminated more through enslavement compared to disease or war. All right, and a law passed in 1704, enslaved indigenous people were conscripted to fight in wars for the colony long before the American Revolution. So they was enslaving indigenous people and then force you to fight in their wars. All right, meanwhile, you still had wars going on between tribes, right? It was always fighting going on, man. We always been fighting. All right. Indigenous people found themselves caught in between colonial strategies for power and economic control. The fur trade in the Northeast, the English plantation system in the South, and the Spanish mission system in Florida collided with major disruptions to indigenous communities. Indigenous peoples displaced from the fur trade in the North migrated south, where plantation owners armed them to hunt for enslaved people living in Spanish mission communities. The French, English, and Spanish often capitalized on trading enslaved peoples in other ways. For example, they garnered diplomatic favor when they negotiated the freedom of enslaved people in exchange for peace, friendship, and military alliance. So, see, this is a way to set them up. All right, they'll say, "Oh, it'll be peace and friendship." You know, they were trading enslaved people. All right. All right, let's get another little quick joint on this. Let me see. Cause I got a book that we gonna get in real quick. Let me see what we got here. So yes, there was slavery among Native Americans in the United States. Now, we talking slavery before the Israelites had indentured servants. That's different than actual slavery. All right, indentured servants was more of a casual job, like, you know, you was taken care of, and it wasn't no harsh treatment or whatnot. You're not supposed to abuse your indentured servant. That's a whole different ball game than this slavery that was going on amongst these so-called Native Americans, right? All right. Tribal territories and slave trades ranged over present-day borders. Some Native American tribes were held captive, war captives as slaves prior to and during European colonization. Some Native Americans were captured and sold by others into slavery to Europeans. So it was Indian on Indian going on, right? You know, you had those backstabbers. Here you go right here. Look. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, a small number of tribes, such as the five so-called civilized tribes, all right, the five civilized tribes were the ones that signed up to be involved with all this trading and slaving other indigenous people. So it was a lot going on, man. All right, you had those coming in, hijacking and teaming up with other backstabbers, and then they infiltrating the tribes, and just a whole lot going on. All right. So yes, it was Indian on Indian as well, teaming up with the colonists. All right, let's get a little. Let me see. Oh yeah. This one right here is major that we didn't really cover. But this one is major part of the curses. Verse 36, right? All right, Hawah will drive you. I don't want that version. Hawah will exile you and your king to a nation unknown to you and your ancestors. There in exile, you will worship gods of wood and stone. Okay? Yes. Let me see what another version says. Hawah shall bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation that neither you nor your fathers have known. A nation that neither you nor your fathers have known. And there you will serve other gods of wood and stone. Alright, so let me see some. Here you go right here. Here's a good example of it right here. So, there you go. Alright. So-called black Indians of the Western Hemisphere. Now, check her out. Riding a whole crocodile, alligator, right? Alright, man with the bow and arrow right there. Alright. But look what we got going on in the background. You see what they setting up, right? Alright, their Christ. You were an enemy of their Christ. Alright, a nation whom you have never known. Who are these people? Where they come from? Alright. And let me see. Yeah, that's all I want to get right there. Oh, nah. Here we go. So they was bringing you the Gospels, right? The Gospels with their Christ. And we still got people today that won't let it go. All right, here goes some examples right here. All right, they just won't let it go. Don't matter what religion you in, because we supposed to keep the law. The law is not a religion. Okay? But people, they can't get away from this. All right? Most of my family is still doing this. right? I thank Hawah that I got broke free from this. And I was never caught up in this like that because I knew something was wrong. When I used to be forced to go to church. I was in choir, usher, and all that back in the day. They used to make me be like one of the youth leaders and whatnot in church. And I just remember I would always sit in the back of the church during the sermon and just be in my zone. Like, it was the same thing every week. It got old. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't learning anything for real. And that was the problem for me. I was really trying to learn. But it's like people was just coming there just to feel good. And then it was so much stuff going on in the background. Like, I was like, man, these people ain't, you know what I'm saying? These ain't church folk. The church folk worse than people I know that don't go to church. Talk about you and all type of gossiping and whatnot. All right, that's what the gospel is gossip. That's all it is. Look at this, man. All right, you know what it is, man. It don't matter what religion you in. All right, these are all wood and stone. All right, who your fathers, your forefathers, your ancestors did not know. They don't even know because this stuff is new. All right, this is new. They ain't know nothing about this. All right, I think we get the point right there. Now, we're going to jump on over to a book real quick. All right. Let me see. So far, I hope you're enjoying this celebration because we got to look at the past so we can get to the future. And that's what we're doing today. I've been wanting to make this Remnant video. Been wanting to make this. So I was a little excited. All right. Dang, where my book at? Oh yeah, here we go. Now we visited this book before. We back at it. All right, this is Columbus and the Conquest of the New World. The Real Holocaust, the American Holocaust by David E. Stannard. And I'm only gonna get a quick little part out of here because things get quite real in this book. All right, if you've never read it, I suggest when you get some time to go check it out. All right, I think this came out in 1993. But let me see what part I'm gonna get to. And we're gonna be talking about the remnant in here too. Let me see. Hold on. All right, here we go. Chapter 3. Okay. The pestilence and genocide. Okay. Like the curses say, pestilence, right? Genocide. The European habit of indiscriminately killing women and children when engaged in hostilities with the natives of the Americas, right? The real natives, was more than an atrocity. All right, it's more than an atrocity. It was flatly and intentionally genocidal. For no population can survive if its women and children are destroyed. Consider the impact of some of the worst instances of modern warfare. In July 1916, at the start of the First Cold War, General Douglas Haig sent his British troops into combat with the Germans at the Battle of Somme. He lost about 60,000 men the very first day, 21,000 in just the first hour, including half his officers. By the time that battle finally ended, Haig had lost 420,000 men. Man, almost 500,000. And the war continued for 2 more years. This truly was far and away the worst war in Britain's history. To make matters worse, since the start of the decade, England had been experiencing significant out-migration and at the end of the decade, it was assaulted by a deadly influenza pandemic. Yet between 1911 and 1921, Britain's population increased by about 2 million people. Or take Japan. Between 1940 and 1950, despite the frenzy of war in the Pacific, capped by the nuclear destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the population of Japan increased by almost 14%. And they had what was those, the atomic bombs and whatnot, right? But it still increased by 14%. Or take Southeast Asia between 1960 and 1970, while B-52s were raining destruction from the sky and a horrific ground war was spilling across every national boundary in the region. Southeast Asia's population increased at an average rate of almost 2.5% per each year. The reason these populations were able to increase despite massive military damage was that a greatly disproportionate ratio of men to women and children was being killed. This, however, is not what happened to the indigenous peoples in the Caribbean, in Mesoamerica and South America, or in what are now the United States and Canada during the European assault against them. Neither was this slaughter of innocents anything but intentional in design, nor did it end with the close of the colonial era. As Richard Drennan has shown in his book, Facing West, The Metaphysics of Indian Hating and Empire Building, America's revered founding fathers were themselves activists in the anti-Indian genocide. See that? The founding fathers of America were activists in anti-Indian genocide. George Washington in 1779 instructed Major General John Sullivan to attack the Iroquois and lay waste all the settlements around. That's George Washington now. That the country may not be merely overrun but destroyed, urging the general not to listen to any overture of peace before the total ruin of their settlements is effected. See what he said? Sullivan did as instructed. He reported back, destroying everything that contributes to their support and turning the whole of that beautiful region, wrote one early account, from the character of a garden to the scene of drear and sickening desolation. The Indians, this writer said, were hunted like wild beasts in a war of extermination, something Washington approved of since, as he was to say in 1783, the Indians, after all, were little different from wolves. All right, that's Washington now. He said the Indians were little different from wolves, both being beasts of prey, though they differ in shape. And since the Indians were mere beasts, it followed that there was no cause for more outrage when it was learned that, among other atrocities, the victorious troops had amused themselves by skinning the bodies of some Indians from the hips downward to make boot tops or leggings. They did what? They were skinning the bodies of the Indians to make boot tops or leggings. What? For their part, the surviving Indians later referred to Washington by the nickname Town Destroyer, for it was under his direct orders that at least 28 out of 30 Seneca towns from Lake Erie to Mohawk River had been totally obliterated in a period of less than 5 years. Totally obliterated. And had all the towns and villages of the Mohawk, the Onondaga and the Cayuga, as one of the Iroquois told Washington to his face in 1792. To this day, when that name is heard, our women look behind them and turn pale, and our children cling close to the necks of their mothers. That's when they hear that name, George Washington. All right, they don't teach you about this in school, right? They might well have clung close to the necks of their mothers when other names were mentioned as well, such as Adams, Monroe, Jackson. All right, all presidents, by the way. Or Jefferson, for example, who in 1807 instructed his Secretary of War that any Indians who resisted American expansion into their lands must be met with the hatchet. And if ever we are constrained to lift the hatchet against any tribe, he wrote, we will never lay it down till that tribe is exterminated or is driven beyond the Mississippi. Continuing, in war, they will kill some of us. We shall destroy all of them. All right, now this is Jefferson, right? These were not offhand remarks, for 5 years later in 1812, Jefferson again concluded that white Americans were obliged to drive the backward Indians with the beast of the forest into the Stony Mountains. And 1 year later, still, he added that the American government had no other choice before it than pursue the Indians to extermination or drive them to new seats beyond our reach. Indeed, Jefferson's writings on Indians are filled with the straightforward assertion that the natives are to be given a simple choice: to be extirpated from the earth or to remove themselves out of Americans' way. See how they was treating them? Had these same words been enunciated by a German leader in 1939 and directed at European so-called Jews, they would be engraved in modern memory. Since they were uttered by one of America's founding fathers, however, the most widely admired of the South's slave-holding philosophers of freedom, they conveniently have become lost to most historians in their insistent celebration of Jefferson's wisdom and humanity. In fact, however, to the majority of white Americans by this time, the choice was of one: expulsion or extermination, although these were by no means mutually exclusive options. Between the time of initial contact with the European invaders and the close of the 17th century, most Eastern Indian peoples had suffered near annihilation levels of destruction. Typically, as in Virginia and New England, 95% or more of their populations had been eradicated. See that? All right, now you know we're talking remnant when you talk 95%. That's almost everybody. But even then, the carnage did not stop. One recent study of population trends in the Southeast, for instance, shows that east of the Appalachians in Virginia, the native population declined by 93% between 1685 and 1790. That is, after it had already declined by 95% during the preceding century. So it just kept dropping, which itself had followed upon the previous century's whirlwind of massive destruction. In eastern North and South Carolina, the decline between 1685 and 1790 was 97%. Again, following upon 2 earlier centuries of genocidal devastation. In Louisiana, the 1685 to 1790 figure for population collapse was 91%, and in Florida, 88%. As a result, when the 18th century was drawing to its close, less than 5,000 native people remained alive in all of Eastern Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Louisiana combined. So they had less than 5,000 people in all those states combined. While in Florida, which alone contained more than 700,000 Indians, in 1520, only 2,000 survivors could be found. All right, we're talking Remnant, right? Overwhelmingly, these disasters were the result of massively destructive epidemics and genocidal warfare, while a small portion of the loss in the numbers derived from forced expulsion from the Indians' traditional homelands. How these deadly phenomena interacted can be seen clearly by examining the case of the Cherokee. After suffering a calamitous measure of ruination during the time of their earliest encounters with Europeans, the Cherokee population continued to decline steadily and precipitously as the years unfolded. During the late 17th and major part of the 18th century alone, for example, the already devastated Cherokee Nation endured the loss of another 3/4 of its population. Then, just as the colonies were going to war in their quest for liberation from the British, they turned their murderous attention one more time to the quest for Indian liquidation. The result for Cherokee was that their towns is all burned. All right, you see, same play, same thing been going on, burning down the towns, man. Wrote one contemporary, their corn cut down, and themselves drove into the woods to perish, and a great many of them killed. All right, Deuteronomy 28, man. Before long, observed James Mooney, the Cherokee were on the verge of extinction. Over and over again, their towns had been laid in ashes and their fields wasted. Their beast warriors had been killed, and their women and children had sickened and starved in the mountains. Thus the attempt at straightforward extermination. Next came expulsion. From the precipice of non-existence, the Cherokee slowly struggled back. But as they did, more and more white settlers were moving into and onto their lands. These aliens started coming in. Then in 1828, Andrew Jackson was elected president. Here you go. Your man Andrew Jackson came through in 1828. Same time that Webster Dictionary came out, huh? The same Andrew Jackson who once had written that the whole Cherokee Nation ought to be scourged. Wait, say what? He said the whole Cherokee Nation ought to be scourged. The same Andrew Jackson who had led troops against peaceful Indian encampments. They was peaceful, but he still led troops against them, calling the Indians savage dogs and boasting that I have on all occasions preserved the scalps of my killed. So what? He collecting scalps. Mr. Jackson, the same Andrew Jackson who had supervised the mutilation of 800 or so Creek Indian corpses, the bodies of men, women, and children that he and his men had massacred, cutting off their noses to count and preserve a record of the dead. Slicing long strips of flesh from their bodies to tan and turn into brittle grains. The same Andrew Jackson who, after his presidency was over, still was recommending that American troops specifically seek out and systematically kill Indian women and children who were in hiding They was hiding. He still wanted to go get them. Man, this man was sick, man. In order to complete their extermination. So he wasn't done with them even after he wasn't president no more. To do otherwise, he wrote, was equivalent to pursuing a wolf in the hammocks without knowing first where her den and whelps were. See that? Andrew Jackson, man. It's terrible. Almost immediately upon Jackson's ascension to the presidency, the state of Georgia claimed for itself enormous chunks of Cherokee property, employing a fraudulent legal technique that Jackson himself had once used to justify dispossession. The Cherokee and other Indian nations in the region, principally the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, and the Creek, stood fast, even taking their case to the United States Supreme Court. But all the while that they were trying to hold their ground, a flood tide of white immigrants, probably about 40,000 in Cherokee country alone, swarmed over the hills and meadows and woods. Just out of nowhere, 40,000 of them. Their numbers continued to swell as gold was discovered in one section of the territory. They just popped up out of nowhere, huh? I wonder where they came from. The white settlers, in fact, were part of the government's plan. These were war tactics, these so-called white people. They were used by the government to drive the Indians off their land. So who was running the government? All right. As Michael Paul Rogan has demonstrated, the intruders entered Indian country only with the government encouragement. After the extinction of state law, and once on the Indians' land, they overran it, confiscating the farms of wealthy and poor Indians alike, says Rogan. They took possession of the Indian land, stock, and improvements, forced the Indians to sign leases, see that? Drove them into the woods, and acquired a bonanza and cleared land. Then they destroyed the game, which had supplemented the Indians' agricultural production, with the result, as intended, that the Indians faced mass starvation. Still, the Cherokee resisted, and by peaceful means, they won their case before the U.S. Supreme Court with the ruling written by Justice John Marshall, a ruling that led to Jackson's famous remark, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." The court, of course, had no direct means of enforcement, so the drive against the Cherokee and the other Indians of the region continued unabated or unabated. Finally, a treaty was drawn up, ceding the Cherokee lands to the American government in exchange for money and some land in what had been designed or designated Indian territory far to the west. Knowing that neither the Cherokee elders nor the majority of the Cherokee people would approve the treaty, the U.S. government held the most influential Cherokee leader in jail and shut down the tribal printing press, while negotiations took place between American officials and a handful of cooperative Indians. So all they needed was a couple of them to get the signature, man. Even the American military official who was on hand to register the tribe's members for removal protested to the Secretary of War that paper called a treaty is no treaty at all, because not sanctioned by the great body of the Cherokee and made without their participation or assent. All right, so you see what's going on with these treaties? All right. I solemnly declare to you that upon its reference to the Cherokee people, it would be instantly rejected by 9/10 of them, and I believe by 19 out of 20th of them. But the president had what he wanted, someone's signature on a piece of paper. This was what the great French observer of American life, Alexis de Tocqueville, was speaking of when he remarked sarcastically that, in contrast with the 16th century Spanish, in the 19th century, and we might add here the 20th, the conduct of the United States Americans towards the natives was inspired by the most chaste affection for legal formalities. It is impossible to destroy men with more respect to laws of humanity. See that? They had more respect, these Indians, to laws of humanity. Soon, the forced relocation was to become known as the Trail of Tears. Began under the direction of General Winfield Scott. In fact, the relocation was nothing less than a death march. A presidentially ordered death march that, in terms of mortality rate directly attributable to it, was almost as destructive as the Bataan Death March of 1942. The most notorious Japanese atrocity in all of the Second World War. About 22,000 Cherokee then remained in existence, 4,000 of whom had already broken under the pressures of white oppression and left for Indian territory. Another 1,000 or so escaped and hid out in the Carolina Hills. The remaining 17,000 were rounded up by the American military and herded into detention camps, holding pens, really, where they waited under wretched and ignominious conditions for months as preparations for forced exile were completed. James Mooney, who interviewed people who had participated in the operation, described the scene. So yeah, I'm gonna stop right there. All right, this is letting you know how they was treating. All right, and how that remnant kept dwindling down. All right, it's got Deuteronomy 28 written all over this book. I suggest you go check it out if you haven't. We're gonna keep it rolling though. Turn up. I got another quick little book. We gonna get it in real quick. Let's get some images real quick. Since we talking Indians, right? Let me see something. All right. Since we talking Indians, shout out to Aquas, man. Beautiful Aquas. All right, here go image of Queen Sheba. I think Solomon's wife, right? All right, look at the beautiful Aqua. All right, shout out Khalifa. All right, who is California is actually named after. All right, and look, they trying to make her seem fictional. It's mythical. They said the mythical mother of California. See, your story, my story, is a mystery. And his story turns into history. Alright? This wasn't mythical. Everything we got, it's gotta be mythical, right? Alright, let me see something else. Let me see something. Yeah, here you go. Seminole Indian chiefs, described as Negroes. Alright, part of the bywords. Alright, the bywords. Check my man's out. He got his fringes on, don't he? Little one got the fringes too, don't it? All right. Oh, here we go again, getting reclassified as colored. All right, with the Commonwealth. All right, told you how the Commonwealth is the main one controlling the states, which control you. All right, all Indians and people of color, known and called Indians within this Commonwealth. See, where this from? This from 1888. The Massachusetts Indians. Sound like Massachusetts. All right. Don't forget about them Indians now. There you go. Check them out. Yeah. Let me see some. Look, original Hawaiians. Here go the real Hawaiians right here. From 1890, it was erased from history. See that? What happened to them? They say they got erased from history. There you go. Look who carrying them, man. Look. Who was this? Who was the original slave? Look who he carrying, man. This is America, man. Look. They're using him like a whole car. Let me see something. Don't forget about your boy, Mr. Plecker, who put the final stamp on it. Made sure he reclassified you. He took that Indian title away, didn't he? People was getting locked up for just saying they was Indian, getting shot, getting hung. This is how you forgot who you were. They scared it out of you. Alright? Mr. Walter Plecker, changing the status of the Indians. See what he doing? Calling them Negroes. Alright, let's see anything else we want to get. Here you go. The West Indians. Alright, Caribs. Look. West Indian. Caribs, the island Negro, they say. And where are the West Indies? Oh, we got an image of the West Indies, right? Yeah, here you go. They go to West Indies right there. Alright, the West Indies. Okay. Is it the Gulf of Mexico or is this the Egyptian Sea? Okay, you got it on the map. Alright, and then I thought this was interesting. You talking about backstabbers, right? I ran into this. I was like, what? This supposed to be a Moor. I zoomed in on, I said, man, that's 50. That look just like 50, don't it? Alright, now I'm not trying to throw no shots at 50, but I was just saying, like, remember earlier this year, T.I. was going at 50. He was calling them out because all he doing is portraying us in TV shows and whatnot with violence and all type of stuff. Maybe this is his bloodline. I don't know. Maybe it's in his blood because this show enough look like 50 to me. What about you? Let me see anything else I want to throw up here before we get into the next book. What else we got? So-called black Indians getting written out of history. Alright, you got beat by the pen, man. They wrote you out of history. The West Indians, where thousands of indigenous were enslaved. Today, Negro has become politically incorrect and is being replaced with African American. The bywords, there you go with your bywords. Alright. They got written out of history, man. And they beat it out of you, too. Now, let's go ahead and move on. We moving on? Let me pull up a map real quick, just to show you. Let me pull up a map real quick. Let me see some. Don't forget, all right? Not only is it the West Indies and India, it's also Asia. Look, that's Asia, man. No separation. All right. Asia Major. See, they call this Asia Minor, but they never tell you about Asia Major with Cathay and all that, right? They don't talk about that. All right. India Superior and all that. Look, India, they go Florida. They also call this the Caspian Sea, huh? Back when they used to make maps like this. And they had it all together as one giant landmass. Okay, I think that's all I want. I think that's all I want to get. Yeah, don't forget Israel, Jerusalem, Judah, Utah. All right, right there. Shout out to UBTV, UB News map. All right, the Egyptian Sea, Egypt. So it's bigger. It's bigger than just Indians, man. This is why they want America so bad. Because this is where everything at. All right, Babylon up there, Assyria. I think Assyria might be over here too. Assyria might be over here on the East Coast. But yeah, man. One last map. Since we brought that up, we might as well. Where is that? Oh yeah, let me show you this too. Ethiopia. Everything was here, man. All right, Ethiopia. Right there in America. All right, don't forget that. The land of Kush. All right. Anything else we want to put on here before we move on? Just running through it now. Don't forget about Tartary, okay? When they mention Tartars or Indians, see? Tartars or Indians right here in America, man. Don't forget that. When they talk Tartary, this is Grand Tartary as well. And one last thing I want to get on here. Where is it at? Yeah. The land of Prester John. Lineage of King David. Right there where we saw Israel and Judah at. You got Prester John. That would be in the right spot. But yet they have America on the right side in the east. Because you're really in the east. Alright, they flipped the map. Now they want to say this is Asia. That's Asia Minor. All right. That's all I want to get in with the maps. We had to get some maps in real quick. All right, we can get some orientation in real quick. Now let's keep it moving. Because I'm going to get a little bit out of this book. And then we're going to hit some scriptures up. But yeah, where is that? Oh yeah, this is, it's not really a book, it's called a discourse, right? Discourse. I accidentally ran into this. All right, this is called The Discourse on the Evidences of the American Indians being the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. All right, this is by James Van Norden in 1837. Now, what I found interesting in here, we don't get much out of here, but I just wanted to show you related to what we was talking about in my last video with the connections of Solomon and Mango or Manco Capac. All right, they even got it in here. This says Don Alonso Aricela in his History of Chile says the Araucanians knowledge one, who was that? The Araucanians acknowledge one supreme being and believe in the immortality of the soul. The Abbe Clavigero declares that they have a tradition of great deluge or the flood, right? The laws and ceremonies of the Peruvians and Mexicans have, no doubt, been corrupted in the course of many ages, both in their sacrifices and worship. Their great and magnificent temple, evidently in imitation of that erected by Solomon, was founded by Mango Capac, or rather by the Inca Yupanqui. Alright, so I know I ain't crazy, right? Just to let you know I ain't crazy, right? Who endowed it with a great wealth. There were many doors to the temple, all of which were plated with gold, and the four walls, the holy way round, were crowned with rich golden garland. Alright, so they saying that the temple that Mango Capac had imitated the one erected by Solomon, or was it actually Solomon's temple? One of his temples, because you know he's Solomon the builder. He's building all types of stuff. I just want to jump to the end of this real quick. Then we're going to get to some scriptures real quick. Let's see. Let's get the end of this real quick. All right. Once again, unfurled the standard of Judah on Mount Zion. The four corners of the earth will give up the chosen people, as the sea will give up its dead at the sound of the last trumpet. Let the cry be Jerusalem, as it was in the days of the Saracen. There goes Saracen again, remember? Dumbed out verses. And the lion-hearted Richard of England, and the rags and wretchedness which have for 18 centuries enveloped the persons of the Israelites. All right, we ain't gonna say Jews, because that's just one tribe of Judah. We talking Israelites, crushed as they were by persecution and injustice, and will fall to the earth, and they will stand forth, the richest, the most powerful, the most intelligent nation on the face of the globe, with incalculable wealth, and holding in pledge the crowns and scepters of kings, placed in possession of their ancient heritage by and with the consent and cooperation of their Christian brethren. So this is obviously a Christian that wrote this. Of course, Christians are like, hey, brother. All right, because they trying to get included in the greatness of this. So they're going to say they're Christian brethren. Establishing a government of peace. Were they really though? Because we just read about the treaties and how they was forging, and they wasn't even getting the collective tribes. They just snatch up one or two people. All right, let's keep going. Establishing a government of peace and goodwill on earth. It may then be said, behold the fulfillment of prediction and prophecy. Behold the chosen and favored people of Almighty Hawah, who in defense of his unity and omnipotence have been the outcasts and proscribed of all nations, and who for thousands or hundreds of years have patiently endured. We talking perseverance, right? They patiently endured the severest of human sufferings in the hope of that great advent of which they never have despaired. And then, when taking their rank once more among the nations of the earth, with the good wishes and affectionate regards of the great family of mankind, they may, by their tolerance, their good faith, their charity, and enlarged liberal views merit what has been said in their behalf by inspired writers. Blessed are they who bless Israel. All right, and this is just a little quick 40-page discourse, but I like the way they ended that. All right, yeah, I like the way they did that. So let's keep it rolling. Let's keep on rolling because these diseases and stuff just ain't gonna stop. All right, you remember what happened 6 years ago, right? Matter of fact, hold on. We supposed to get some scriptures before we get to this. All right, I'm jumping around. Hold on. Let's go to some scriptures real quick, man. Let's get some scriptures about all this. Let's go. We're going to Enoch real quick. All right, Enoch 105. Now, I don't want to jump far ahead. Let's just go ahead and get up in here. Uncle Enoch. We start at verse 21. All right. Another Sefer, which Shanach or Karnak, Enoch, wrote for his son Methuselah, and for those who should come after him, and guard their purity of conduct in the latter days. So, knowing you're a remnant is good and all, but if you don't know the purpose of all this and haven't learned from it, then all of this pain and suffering and perseverance would be just in vain for you. All right? So you can need to guard the purity of conduct in these latter days. This is what Enoch said, right? He said, you who have labored shall wait in those days until the evildoers be consumed and the power of the guilty be annihilated. Wait until sin pass away, for their name shall be blotted out of the holy Sephirim, that holy book, right? The holy books. Their seed shall be destroyed, and their ruachah, their spirit, shall be slain. They shall cry out and lament in invisible waste, and in the bottomless fire shall they burn. There I perceived, as it were, a cloud which could not be seen through, for from the depth of it I was unable to look upwards. I beheld also a flame of fire blazing brightly, and as it were glittering mountains whirled around and agitated from side to side. Then I inquired of one of the holy angels who was with me and said, what is splendid? For it is not heaven, but a flame of fire alone which blazes, and the clamor of exclamation of woe and great suffering. All right, he talking about Sheol, huh? He said, there, into that place which you behold. You talking about that pit. You talking about that pit. All right, there, into that place which you behold shall be thrust the ruachah of sinners and blasphemers, of those who shall do evil, and who shall pervert all which Hawah has spoken by the mouth of the prophets, all of which they ought to do. For respecting these things there shall be writings and impressions above in heaven, that the angels may read them and know what shall happen both to sinners and to the ruachah of the humble, to those who have suffered in their bodies, but have been rewarded by Hawah, who have been injuriously treated by wicked men. See, just like we got in Isaiah, man, are injuriously treated by wicked men who have loved Hawah, who have been attached neither to gold nor silver. So you shouldn't be attached to gold nor silver, nor to any good thing in the world. See? You shouldn't be attached to any good thing in this world, but have given their bodies to torment. All right, yeah, you definitely tormented in this life. To those who from the period of their birth have not been covetous of earthly riches. You ain't worried about no earthly riches, but have regarded themselves as a breath passing away. Such has been their conduct, and much has Hawah tried them. We getting tried right now. And their Ruwakov have been found pure, that they might bless his name. All their blessings have I related in a sefer, and he has rewarded them, for they have been found to love heaven with an everlasting aspiration, while they have been trodden down by wicked men. They have heard from them revelings and blasphemies, and have been ignominiously treated while they were blessing me. And now will I call a Ruwakov of the good from the generation of light, and will change those who have been born in darkness, and who have not in their bodies been recompensed with glory, as their faith may have merited. I will bring them into the splendid light of those who love my holy name, and I will place each of them on a throne of glory of his own. And they shall be at rest during unnumbered periods. Righteous is the judgment of Hawah. For to the faithful shall he give faith in the habitations of uprightness. They shall see those who have been born in darkness, and unto darkness shall be cast, while the righteous shall be at rest. Sinners shall cry out, beholding them, while they exist in splendor, and proceed forwards to the days and periods prescribed to them. Yeah. So don't worry about none of this that's going on right now. Focus on the greater picture, that throne of glory that will be placed upon you if you love Hawah's holy name. You keep those statutes, commandments, and precepts. Right? Let's get another script. Let's go to 2nd Ezra for a second. I be rolling. Or 4 Ezra. And we're going to chapter 7. Alright. Verse 88. Let's talk about those, alright? Now, this is the order of those who have guarded the ways of Hawah. Alright, you see they got Elyon as the Most High. But we know Hawah is the Most High, and it don't get no higher than Hawah. Right? When they shall be separated from their mortal body. This is the order of those who have guarded the ways of Hawah when they shall be separated from their mortal body. During the time that they lived in it, they laboriously served Hawah and withstood danger every hour, that they might guard the Torah of the Torah giver perfectly. See? Yes, the object, that's the goal, is to guard that Torah perfectly. Not saying that you gotta be perfect as an individual, but when it comes to keeping that Torah, you need to do it as perfectly as you can. Therefore, this is the teaching concerning them. First of all, they shall see with great joy the glory of him who receives them. for they shall have rest, and 7 orders. The first order, because they have striven with great effort to overcome the evil thoughts which was formed with them. We know everything starts in the mind, your thoughts. They're like wild beasts running in your head, all right? But you have striven with great effort to overcome the evil thought which was formed with them, that it might not lead them astray from life into death. The second order, because they see the perplexity in which the souls of wicked wander. All right, you're gonna see this, and this is the judgment day we're talking about. They're gonna see what's happening with the wicked. The wicked gonna see what's happening with the righteous. All right, there's gonna be different sides. So they're gonna see the perplexity in which the souls of the wicked wander, and the punishment that awaits them. The third order, they see the witness which he who formed them bears concerning them, that while they were alive, they guarded the Torah. There we go again. They guarded the Torah, which was given them in trust. All right, this ain't no religion, man. The Torah is the law, it's the truth. Ain't got nothing to do with religion, man. The fourth order, they understand the rest which they now enjoy, being gathered into their chambers and guarded by angels in profound quiet, in the glory which awaits them in the last days. The fifth order, they rejoice that they have now escaped what is corruptible and shall inherit what is to come, the uncorruptible. And besides, they see the straits and toil from which they have been delivered, and the spacious liberty which they are to receive and enjoy in immortality. The sixth order, when it is shown to them how their face is to shine like the sun, and how they are to be made like the light of the stars, being incorruptible from then on. The seventh order, which is greater than all that have been mentioned, because they shall rejoice with boldness, and shall be confident without confusion, and shall be glad without fear, for they hasten to behold the face of him whom they served in life, and from whom they are to receive their reward when glorified. This is the order of the souls of the righteous, as henceforth is announced. And the aforesaid are the ways of torment, which those who would not give heed shall suffer hereafter. All right, them stiff-necked family members that don't want to listen, man. I answered and said, will time therefore be given to the souls after they have been separated from the bodies to see what you have described to me? He said to me, they shall have freedom for 7 days, so that during these 7 days they may see the things of which you have been told, and afterwards they shall be gathered into their habitations. I answered and said, if I have found favor in your sight, show further to me your servant, whether on the day of judgment the righteous will be able to intercede for the wicked, or to pray to the Most High for them. Fathers for sons, or sons for parents, brothers for brothers, relatives for their kinsmen, or friends for those who are most dear. He answered me and said, since you have found favor in my sight, I will show you this also. The day of judgment is decisive and displays to all the seal of truth. Just as now a father does not send his son, or a son his father, or a master his servant, or a friend his dearest friend, to be ill or sleep or eat or be healed in his place, so no one shall ever pray for another on that day, neither shall anyone lay a burden on another, for then everyone shall bear his own righteousness and unrighteousness. And this verse alone destroys Christianity, where they believe their sins can go all to this so-called savior figure, Messiah figure, right? This one verse destroys Christianity because that's their sole belief. But yes, all praise to Hawah, because we're getting closer to this time right here. Now, that being said, we can go back over here and see what they've been doing, right? All right. From the front lines to the first in line to get that COVID-19, all right, that stinger, all right. Nurse Sandra Lindsay made history as the first person in the United States to be immunized. You remember this? They had a nurse up there, melanated. You see who they put as the face of things, right? She was the first one. And what she said? She wanted to lead by example and ease skepticism about that thing by letting people know it's safe. It does give me tremendous hope, Sandra said. She encourages everyone to listen to science and do their part in restoring public safety. I remember when this happened. All right? She wants you to listen to science instead of listening to Hawah. Because science, their science, is opposite of Hawah. All right, but remember, she said she wants everybody to do their part. Same thing going on today. All right, with this thing they call that hantavirus, that new hantavirus, all right. All right, sounds like the word haunt, right? Which means to practice habitually, busy oneself with, or take part in. Just like she said, she wants you to do your part. Haunt, the word haunt, hanta virus, means to take part in. Now, I don't know if this gonna be the next thing or not, but I still see it going on, right? And people were saying that word hanta means scam in Hebrew, right? They were saying this word means scam. It was all over the place. So they had to come out and they had to refute that. And they said hanta and hantavirus means scam, fraud, lie, or fake. All right, but they said this is false. They said that name comes from the Hantan River in Korea, where the prototype virus was identified, not from Hebrew. So they quickly debunked it. But let's go to somebody that says it is fake. See what they got to say. All right, they say this is fake. Predictive programming in Hollywood. All right. They said this is nonsense, a lie, a scam. And we got a little video. I'm gonna keep the music playing. They talking about it, all right, and what they got going on. Is this the next new thing? I don't know, but I thought this was interesting. All right, let's get it in.
Place on a cruise ship, just like I covered back, as I mentioned so many times in the past. Just look for that number 33 with the so-called Atlantic Odyssey with the Hanta Nightmare. And just taking a look at the name Hanta itself, when it comes to Hebrew, it means nonsense, a lie, scam, fraud, or something fake.
All right.
Very interesting when it comes to Hanta. Of course, taking place on a cruise ship, just like I covered back in 2020 with that news story going back 6 years ago. Here you see the Princess Cruise Line, the Grand Princess. We'll get into the Diamond Princess actual cruise from Japan in a little bit, but I should mention this photo with the Golden Gate Bridge actually painted international orange for 33, and construction started in 1933. But again, when it comes down to it with this Hanta, and supposedly it started off with a rat, and going back in time again 6 years ago, it supposedly went down, started with a bat. So you have a bat and a rat with both these headline news stories. And again, the number 33. Again, 6 years ago, I covered this with the Diamond Princess Cruise Line. Of course, Diamond being 33 in numerology. And just take a look at the text underneath the video itself. Again, back in 2020, Bill and Colette Smedley hope to celebrate their 33rd wedding anniversary. And again, the Diamond Cruise. And this is from his Facebook post. Again, people that deny the number 33, there's a lot of so-called truthers that mock when I mention the number 33. They have no place in truth. And again, all these news stories that I covered going back in the past, cover them all. When it comes to, of course, Charlie Kirk, you see Epstein, Trump, everything you see here I cover in great detail. O.J. Simpson as well. And just a little bit of close-up of these news stories I've covered, just for context. Again, that number 33, for those that don't know, is all about the 1/3 or 33% of the fallen ones, the fallen angels, and Lucifer being thrown from heaven. And again, the concept of communication when it comes to Masons, out of evil comes good. However, in the confusion of tongues gave rise to the ancient practice of Masons conversing without the use of speech. So they're going to tell you without words with this number 33, like I mentioned to start off this video. Now again, going back in time, when it comes to this news story, as I've covered in 2020, here you see Bart Simpson, of course, from The Simpsons. Simpson in numerology is 33, and this episode is from 2012. And before I show this episode, this portion, this aspect of it, let's take a look here at the predictive programming aspect, which we've seen so many times in television programming. Predictive programming in the context of media and culture refers to the idea that media, particularly movies and television shows, subtly prepare audiences for future events or societal changes by presenting them in fictional scenarios. Now let's take a look from the episode from 2012 with Bart Simpson manufacturing this panic aboard this cruise ship, just like we've seen 8 years later in the so-called real world. Let's get right to it.
This is General William Sullivan with an emergency message. Outbreak of the deadly Pandora virus is spreading rapidly. All ships must remain at sea until further. Humanity must endure.
A virus? They're buying it. They're buying it.
And just like society is buying it, again, getting back to the aspect of predictive programming, take a look here from the X-File movie called Fight the Future. As you can see here, the subtitle of this movie, and you can see here at the very top, this year take your greatest fear and multiply it by 10, or the X as in X-Files. But one thing I find interesting when it comes down to it, Fight Future is all about predictive programming, and the number 66. For those that don't know the number 66, it comes down to it, 33 equals 66 in numerology. Now to conclude, let's take a look at this clip from the movie itself. Very telling. Again, they must tell us what's going to happen before it happens.
Are you familiar with the hantavirus, Agent Mulder?
Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago.
According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency.
And again, I show the numbers, I show the evidence. I don't base the information I provide in video presentations based on one piece of information. I use multiple. And I've done that over the decades. Again, with this movie, Fight the Future, and the Simpsons episode from 2012. Unbelievable. The world is an absolute stage, and everything we see happening today was planned out long ago.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that, my friend. All right, we back. Now, you notice he kept saying 33, right? Now, you know everything they do is a mockery, right? They say 33, oh, JC died at 33, Lucy took down a third of the angels, that's 33, and Masonic high numbers 33, right? All these things they attach to 33. A bunch of rituals they do with that number 33, right? But let's talk about the real 33 for a second, if you don't mind. We're going to go over here to Zechariah. All right. Chapter 13. All right, it's a quick one. All right. Verse 1. In that day, there shall be a fountain open to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall come to pass in that day, says Hawah, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they shall no more be remembered. And also I will cause the prophets and the unclean Rawak to pass out the land. And it shall come to pass that when any shall yet prophesy, then his father and his mother that begat him shall say unto him, you shall not live, for you speak lies in the name of Hawah. And his father and mother that begat him shall thrust him through when he prophesies. And it shall come to pass in that day that the prophet shall be ashamed, every one of his vision. And when he has prophesied, neither shall they wear a rough garment to deceive. But he shall say, I am no prophet, I am a husbandman. For man taught me to keep cattle from my youth. And one shall say unto him, what are these wounds in your hands? Then he shall answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, and against the man that is my fellow, says Hawah. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn my hand upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, says Hawah, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. The third shall be left therein, and I will bring the third part through the fire. See? I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people. And they shall say, Hawah, Hawah. Alright, so who's going to get tried through the fire? A third. You break a third down. It is 33. If you didn't know, 1/3 is 33%. Just like they say a third of the angels fell, right? Well, it's a third that is the remnant. It will be tried. And the righteous is called the elect. So, what's greater? Their 33 or your 33? Because their 33 is wicked. But this 33 is going to make it. Huh? Make it to the kingdom. To be with Hawah in the next life. So we want to focus on the good, not bad. Remember, like we got in the other scripture, you don't have no parts of this world and what they got going on. Right? All right. We almost at the home. We at the home stretch now. Ooh, let me see what we got left. Oh man, we ain't got nothing but one more. We ain't got nothing but one more scripture left. Alright, let's go and get this last scripture and then we're gonna wrap things up. If you still rocking with me right now, Ahab to you. Shalom. Doing this for the perseverance of the remnant, man. It's a celebration. Charlie Murphy. Alright, man. We're going to Psalms 91 real quick. Alright. Talking about that protection now. Alright? Because what's the point of knowing all this? Knowing you the remnant. Knowing you made it through all the struggle and pain. And you don't do the one thing that's going to get you. You don't want to persevere just to lose, right? We want to win. Everybody got to do a self-examination to make sure that you're in line with Hawah's law. Now, when you're in line with Hawah's law, you get divine protection. And that's what we're talking about right here in Psalms 91. Alright? Verse 1. He who dwells in the secret place. And there they go with El Elyon again, which means Most High. But the Most High is Hawah. He who dwells in secret place of Hawah. Hawah got a secret place. Shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty Hawah. Right? El Shaddai, Hawah. I will say of Hawah, He is my refuge, my fortress, my power. In Him will I trust. All right, and we know Hawah is not an actual Him's the spirit, but yes, okay, you already know that, right? All right, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings shall you trust. His truth, shall be your shield and buckler. What's the truth? The Torah is the truth. Psalms 119. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day. Today they use bullets, right? Nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come nigh you. Only with your eyes shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made Hawah, which is my refuge, even Hawah, your habitation. There shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come nigh your dwelling. For Hawah shall give his angels charge over you, to guard you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion, the adder, the young lion and the dragon shall trample under your feet. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him. Alright, this Hawah speaking. And show him my salvation. All praise Hawah, man. I hope you got something out of this today. I'm gonna leave y'all one more thing. Ahab. Alright, Dawada, you made it right all the way to this moment. Alright, go ahead and share this with somebody that need it, if you will, please. But let's get this last thing, but we head out of here. Alright, me and ChatGPT was back at it again, and we done came up with a little chart for you, a diagram. Alright, and this is how you get eternal life. Alright, what's the point of persevering if you don't make it to eternal life? You gotta keep that 9 code. Huh? That 9 code of Hawah, 9 commandments, 1 covenant, 1 creator. Alright? Now, ChatGPT, I tried to get them to get it right. But you know, they can't always get everything right. So I told them to put the first 2 together. They put the last 2 together, man. At least they got 9 of them, alright? Because that 9 code is a 9 spiral. Shout out 9 spiral. It's the highest single digit, the number of completion, the spiral of ascent to return to the source, the eternal cycle of life. You've got to keep the 9 code. Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 6. We know this, right? Can we do this? Huh? Can you have loyalty to the Creator and have no other power or Elohim before Hawah? You only serve Hawah. You don't bow down to no graven images. You guard the name. You're not using the name in vain. You keeping that Shabbat, the Sabbath day, keeping it holy, right? Remember the 9 code is life. Torah is your life. It is the path of righteousness. It is the Torah of Hawah. It is the way of ascent. It is the spiral of life. It is the key to eternal life. This is it. Alright? Alright? If you can't do nothing else, you better know this. If you don't know nothing else, and I don't know why they got revelation in here. Alright, I told her, see what I'm talking about? Now me and ChatGPT gonna have to go back and have a talk again. Cause I didn't even catch this at first. He just snuck that in on me, huh? Anyway, honor your parents, honor your father and mother above. Alright? Yes, show respect to your parents, your earthly parents. But you better make sure you honor your parents, your father and mother above. No murder, no adultery, no stealing. Alright? And do not bear false witness. Alright, you lying on folks, you ain't gonna make it. Huh? You covetous? You want what somebody else got? You ain't gonna make it. Especially all y'all that want to claim to be Israel. That's the most covetous man in the world. Somebody that want to be you, take your name. Huh? But the spirit of truth has entered the chat. And it's a wrap for all that. We taking everything back. Taking back our 33 today. That's what we took back today. Huh? They want to have that? Nah, we got that. That's the remnant. The third that's going to make it. 2/3 ain't going to make it. But 1/3 will. They're going to get tried into the fire. Blessings are on the head of the righteous. Alright, sorry about that little hiccup right here with Revelations, y'all, but you get it, right? Alright, this is on the Decalogue stone in Los Lunas, New Mexico, written in Paleo Hebrew. We got it written in stone. This is written in stone. You better believe this is real. If you don't believe nothing else. Now, that's all I got. That's it. All right. I appreciate y'all rocking out with me, man. It's been a fun one. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one, all right? Ahab, Shalom, and Halal Hawah.